Today, you've heard the phrase, your network is your net worth. It's totally true. And today we're talking to someone who has built a business around knowledge sharing and networking to the point where they're doing hundreds of free webinars a year. That's right, free, and 100 plus in-person events all around delivering open knowledge sharing and connections. His name is Aaron Conant. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show. And each week I feel it's such a privilege to be able to talk to smart CEOs, founders, co-founders, entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies. We've had Netflix and Kinko's, YPO, EO, Grubhub, Redfin. Go check out the archives. There's lots of great episodes in there. And of course, this is brought to you by Rise25, my company where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com if you have any questions. My guest today is Aaron Conant. He's a co-founder and chief digital strategist at BWG Connect. It's a platform known for its executive strategy and networking sessions. He and I are big woos. We love talking to people. And fortunately, we've both been able to build businesses that enable us to indulge in that pleasure. He's over a decade of experience in digital commerce and provided advisory services to, I don't know, at this point, thousands of different brands on various aspects related to digital strategies, including Amazon strategies, retail media, direct-to-consumer platform selection, SEO, you name it. And fun fact, he also was a research scientist at Pfizer. We'll get to that. But first, Aaron, such a pleasure to have you here today. And I want to start with, I love to ask people about how they were as a kid. And I think it says a lot about us. You were doing door-to-door sales from a catalog for Olympic Sales Club, getting prizes and commissions as a kid during the summertime. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, first, John, thanks so much for having me on today. Really love Rise25, essential and me getting my podcast up and going. And so quick thank you on that side. But then, we can jump into it a little bit. As a kid, I've always kind of been an entrepreneur, and there's this crazy thing back in the 80s called Olympic Sales Club. And you could go door to door with a catalog and, it was a bunch of random stuff in it that people would buy. I don't know if it's, candles, candle holders, doilies, it doesn't matter what it is, little notepads and pens. And you could go door to door and you could trade basically credits in for everything that you sold. And you could trade it in for toys and prizes, or you could trade it in for cash. And
how old are you when you're doing this?
I'm 10.
10. Okay.
And
safe neighborhood, I assume, while you're going around, but
yeah. Wandering around door to door, knocking on doors, just, engaging.
I have
with
this
people.
massive Sears catalog of items for you.
Yeah. But you mentioned it. I'm a woo. I'm 100% a woo. Everybody's a friend. And so that was kind of like the precipice for just being comfortable walking up to people and just wanting to know a little bit more about them, understanding what their needs are, and then, connecting them with something that they may or may not want at the end. But that, it was neat. And there's a couple of things that I learned from it. And one was, on the prize side is, I'm looking at this and I get so hyped about a toy that I wanted that was in there, but I didn't read the fine detail on. I actually look at it, and so I sent away for it, and it showed up, and it totally was like a total knockoff, right? It was not an actual Transformer. If you remember Transformers from back in the day, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that actual like Megatron Transformer.
It was like a knockoff Megatron.
Yeah, total knockoff.
Geez.
I was totally burned, but it was like an instant life lesson in attention to detail and how important it is to be successful and, get what you want. And I had that at 10, maybe 11 at that point in time, but
good lesson.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing that I find, I consider myself an extrovert. In the sense that I get energy from talking to other people. It sounds like you are as well. On the other hand, there's this kind of like analytical side to me. I went to law school. You studied biochemistry at the University of Michigan. Not an easy thing to study, requiring, I'm sure, many hours in a library with your nose in a book, which is like the opposite of what most extroverts want to do. So it seems like in both of us, I go to law school, you study biochemistry, become a research scientist at Pfizer. There's an element to our personality that allows us to spend long periods of time studying a deep topic. Does this resonate with you? Do you feel like there's a kind of dual sides to your personality?
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I love the analytical side. Like I said, that was something that I learned earlier on. But that there's also the side of it that I love the challenge, and the challenge that comes with studying something that's hard. And I mean, I ended up at Pfizer doing research chemistry, and then I was at the back of the lab, and there's not too many people to talk to. There's like, beakers and chemicals to talk to. And so it was one of those things where I love chemistry. I do, I think it relates a lot to, the scientific process to winning in e-commerce, which is what we host most of our events on, and kind of where I sit as a digital strategist was, it's not, it's just an interesting thing to think about. When you look at a reaction that you're going to do, you have the hypothesis and you've got the variables and you have the constants that you hold in place. And then you're trying to make something that nobody else has made before. And there's no like perfect answer. There's just an answer at the end. And the more experiments you do, the more you learn and the closer you can get to being better and being the best. And you repeat it over and over and over again. And you kind of set any failure aside. It's not really a failure. It's an event. It's not a person. It's just that singular event that you can still learn from. And, I get asked a lot, like, wait, how did you go from chemistry into this, into a digital world and an Amazon business and building
which
a
was
B2B
perfect segue into what was going to be my next question. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I left Pfizer. I jumped over to a company called Perrigo. It became a project manager, and I got a crazy project to launch a direct-to-consumer site, Amazon business. And what I quickly found was digital commerce right now, whether it's Amazon or direct-to-consumer or digital marketing, it's so new. All this stuff nobody's really done before. Mm-hmm. And so it's the exact same situation that I had in chemistry, but you get interaction with people. You're trying stuff new on a daily basis. You're going to fail fast and fail a lot. And you're going to get to the right answer quicker than other people are if you can do more experiments, we'll say, right? And
did you know that going into it? Like when you went from Pfizer to Perrigo, did you see that on the horizon, or are you saying that in retrospect now I realize why this works for my personality?
Yeah, it was after, like, I don't know, we had 9 number 1 bestsellers on Amazon. So I went from nothing, from startup cold calling Amazon, within a couple of years getting 9 number 1 bestsellers in the OTC pharma category. And that's where somebody was like, what is going on? Right? Like, how did you do this? And that was kind of an introspective moment. Like, yeah, how is this working? When you talk to other people, like I'm a networker, like, what are you doing? I quickly found out that people would just try one thing and try it over and over and over again. And, oh, well, this wasn't the right time of year, or, hey, it might've been just the wrong product. And I was quickly cycling through, okay, I'm going to change up content. I'm going to change up wording. I'm going to change up imagery. I'm going to shift it to other things. And so it's that whole, you can't just throw anything up against the wall and hope something sticks. You've got to pick what wall you're going to throw it up against, what you're going to throw up against the wall, and how hard you're going to throw it. And then you take a step back, and then you can read data. And with that data, you can make the next best choice.
And now there's so many different software solutions that can help with these processes. But what were you like kind of creating spreadsheets for yourself to keep track of all these different, tests that you're running?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I did, at Pfizer as a scientist. I mean, got a digital notebook, an avid note taker. And again, getting back to that data analysis of what works and what doesn't, and, doing multiple variable testing. The thing that I ran into though was, like you're saying, there's so many different service providers that are out there. Because I mean, when you're thinking back in like 2013, 14, 15, digital, if you're in a big company, the digital team is quite small, unless you're digitally native, right? If you're a big corporate America, you've got a small team, and that means you have to find partners in the space to help you out. Well, now, how do you know which ones to pick? I mean, you can go to the, back in the day, IRCE, you can go to the shop talk now. And I mean, you can meet a ton of vendors, but you're just talking to their salespeople, and everybody's perfect for you. Just ask them. So, I sat in a spot where I was struggling to connect with other brands that I could have a candid conversation with. Okay, how are you growing on Amazon? Who's your Amazon agency? Who built your website? I got burned on an integrator. I chose the wrong platform originally. And you just start to start looking for other brands to talk to. And what I realized was there really wasn't a network out there to do that.
And so that sounds like that was the seed of the idea of starting BWG Connect then.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. There's a really cool company called BWG Strategy. They're a big market research firm. They have thousands of conference calls up publicly, all these different publicly traded verticals. And I was on, some of these networking calls around Amazon and Walmart. And I spent just a little bit of time in China trying to get Tmall Global set up with Infant Formula. And I was on these calls, and I just reached out to Bill, the founder, and I said, "Hey, Bill, like, I need to talk, to, like Ray-Ban's on the call and Nature Sleep's on the call, and they're like crushing it." It's like, I need to talk to them. I need to understand who their Amazon agency is. I want to talk to that. Help me select mine because I need one. And Bill was like, "Hey, we don't do that. That's, we do research." And I said, well, you should. And he said, "Okay, well, quit your job and we'll kick off a networking group." And
did you know what the business model would be?
No, zero.
Really? And how much? So that usually when that happens, then there's some kind of runway or period of time. But you were starting it under the umbrella of a larger company. So did you have like an unlimited period of time to figure out what the business model was, or how did you figure that out?
No, not with Bill. I mean, it was, hey, we're gonna get this done. We're gonna pull the trigger and get it done. So, it was about 3 months to put together a business plan.
Okay.
Do a couple trials, and then, I mean, you got to jump, right? At some point in time, you guys got to jump in and give it your all. And it was, it was one of those, hey, living a life of least regrets, the whole Jeff Bezos thing.
And what was it like when you went to your family and your friends and you said, got the stable company, been here, Perrigo, for all these years. I'm going to go start this other thing. What's the business model? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Friends thought I was crazy. Wife, totally supportive, because I don't know. I mean, I met her in high school. So she knows I was driven. Like.
Yeah.
Right. And it was going to work out. My mom's question was, are my grandkids going to be able to eat? I mean, we've got 4 kids. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to eat. They didn't understand it. And so, there's the unit I originally kicked off was eCom advisory. And then after, a year and a half, it was full-fledged up and rolling, and got, fully acquired into BWG, and we rebranded BWG Connect. And
it's a really interesting business model, because you don't charge for webinars. You do dinners around the U.S. I imagine maybe you charge something for that. You have these cocktail hours. Tell a little bit about kind of the different offerings that you have in the business.
Yeah. So, as I spend my days, majority of them, talking to brands that start up the Fortune 100 up every vertical at this point in time. It works for them because, I advise a lot of brands, and but I don't monetize those conversations. They're free. So brands, you think they don't have to spend $800 an hour to talk to an expert. They can just, reach out to myself. We brought on other digital strategists as well. And, they can just talk to us for free. And then we talk to so many brands, we're asking them a few things. We're saying, hey, what are your biggest pain points? So we can stay really topical, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get our webinar topics. It's how we get, the podcast topics. It's how we get the dinner topics. We can get really topical and stay, really focused on whatever's top of mind for people in an ever changing category, whether it's retail media or it's SEO or drop shipping, whatever the big trends are. With that, then we're also asking them, hey, who's helping out and who's not? So we now have this giant network of thousands of brands who share with, each other, via, BWG Connect, which is the focal point, who the top service providers are in any given area. And so then those are the people we can reach out to for sponsorships of events.
And so you have like a marquee sponsor for the events. And this past year, you did 100 different events, cocktail hours, dinners, stuff like that. And you have a marquee sponsor that kind of pays for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly it. Exactly it. And yeah, it's great. I mean, there's, in some cases, you find a really cool company that might be a little bit smaller and they can't quite afford something. So we have some referral agreements in place, right? That, oh, well, they want to be able to do what they can. Okay, well, just if you close business, then, compensate us back. It's very interesting business model.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of built around what I desired to have when I was in the brand space is I don't want to pay to go to an event. I don't want to get there. So there's no sales pitches. There's no presentations at any of our dinners. And that's it. Never. We don't allow it. And so brands have learned over the past, 6.5 years that, I mean, they're pretty sweet events. Like I'm going to just show up. I'm going to get everybody's email address. I'm going to be connected with everybody there. They're all local, so, we do, 40% of them in New York City and the rest are Boston, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Austin, Miami, Seattle.
The big locations where the brands are. Yeah.
And so you're meeting there with other people that are local. Right. And we do a spread like, we get, the Fortune 500s in the room, but we also get startups in the room. And so, cause sometimes like I knew I was at, the big Fortune 500 or whatever, and we weren't doing the most cutting edge stuff. And there's some cool new people, that have less bureaucracy and they don't have external procurement to go get somebody approved.
Yeah.
They can just choose a new vendor like that and vet them out. So
yeah. What was it like for you when the pandemic hit? Being a woo, liked being around people, doing events and stuff like that. With everything having to shut down, or because you had the webinar side to the business, did that insulate you?
Well, it insulated us a little bit, because of the webinars. But there's nothing that replaces in person. I mean, and so, I mean, it was scary at first because the dinner revenue, just goes away.
Yeah.
So you have to shift it all to webinar, which is fine. I mean, but that year we did 350 webinars.
Wow. That's crazy. How many of those do you host personally? You were the moderator?
I think 250 probably.
Wow. I remember talking to you when you were at that point. And I remember talking about getting, the struggles that you had with getting someone else to moderate, facilitate, because that's such a difficult, that's such integral to who you are, difficult to find someone. You ultimately ended up finding someone, but I think you probably were at your breaking point at one point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I mean, it was just an interesting time because, when the pandemic hits, I sit in the digital space, right? D2C, Amazon and everything, Walmart, everything that's around that. Well, that was the time that everybody was trying to learn. So at that point in time, I think there's probably like 1,500 to 2,000 people that really understood e-commerce. And then because everything had been pushed down, right? Corporate America did not want to, Amazon was something scary. Then all of a sudden the pandemic hits and we need 8,000 or 9,000 people because all this digital is blowing up. Well, they don't learn overnight. You don't just go to LinkedIn and put digital in front of your name and all of a sudden you're a digital specialist.
Right.
And so, we just had this massive request, just pump, like we need more. We need to understand everything from, influencers, to Amazon, to paid media, to DSP, to drop shipping, inventory analysis, chargeback. I mean, it was like everybody needs to learn everything like that.
Yeah.
And so it was a mass scramble.
And so for you as a company and as an individual, you're putting your reputation on the line when you bring an outside expert to come in and to present. What's your process for vetting these companies and making sure that you get, not just educational, that the information is correct, entertaining, that these presentations are not going to sully your reputation and that are going to be valuable for the brands that you want to have attend?
I mean, it's the beauty of the network is anybody that we bring on has to be recommended from brands in the network. So there's a fairly high threshold that, if nobody in the network knows you and nobody has recommended you in, and I haven't sent you out to be vetted, then we don't do an event.
Mm.
But I mean, there's key people, on my personal digital board of directors. If they say, hey, I vetted these guys out, it's worth doing. I think 1,000 people in the network need to hear from these guys, then they're in. But other than that, you need to come recommended from multiple different brands. And usually then a lot of people, we fly under the radar. I'm not doing any paid media that's out there whatsoever because I don't want tons of inbound. I only want recommendations. So we get into these weird scenarios where I have 5 or 6 brands recommend a new provider, and I'll reach out to them and say, hey, ping them on LinkedIn, or I'll ask for an intro from one of the brands after, I've talked to a few different that have used them. And I'll say, hey, can you make a connection? And I'll jump on the phone and they'll have no idea what we do. And I'll name off 6 to 10 of their current clients. And they're like, how do you know? How do you know, 10% of our customer base? And I'll kind of walk them through the business model. But I mean, it's not necessarily me vetting them. It's the brands and the organization. And that's the other cool thing is there's no threshold. It's not like you have to be doing $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Anybody's welcome. Anybody wants to, join. You're in the supply chain side and you want to join an Amazon webinar. We don't care. Show up.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes
ask questions.
Sometimes some of the wisest people out there are not out doing presentations all the time because they're practitioners. I want to know what the logistics around doing 250 webinars or whatever it was in the year after the pandemic was like, and how you managed that how that didn't break your business.
Hard work. I get asked a lot, what's the silver bullet? The silver bullet is hard work, nonstop hard work. Everything. We're really relying on Salesforce and everything that's in there on the back end. And we keep, locations if we can, if we know based on LinkedIn where people are at, if we're doing in-person events. But other than that, we have email addresses. We don't sell any of that data whatsoever. So people trust us. And then we just email people. We send out a monthly, said, hey, here's the upcoming events. Tell us which ones you want to attend. And we send you an invite. So, we've got millions of emails going out a year at this point in time. And that is just a seasoned strategic team. And, a lot of that is just, it's the team. That's what it is. They're a really good team, and pouring in them and letting them know how valuable they are. I could never do this without the team. It
requires a lot of a top-notch team and a lot of coordination. What about now? When you and I first met, you weren't sharing. You were creating all this content that would exist and then disappear into the ether, and you weren't capturing it. Of course, I'm a big fan of capturing content, sharing it, but that was a big pivot for you, shifting from taking some of this content, because that's your business is built around it. And then actually posting it, putting it on your website. You then later launched a podcast, which you have, of course. So putting content out there. Talk a little bit about some of the fears that you had getting into the sharing of this content, especially because in your business model, that was a lot of the value that you provided for people.
Yeah. I just have this hesitation a little bit to put out, I don't know, I don't like to brag. That I guess is kind of what it is. And it seems, and it's not, I know it's the wrong way to look at it, but it was like, we're just cranking through a ton of content, and there's a few people out there that's doing it. And so it's kind of that a little bit like, I don't want people think I'm pumping out all this content just to pump out content. The other side of it is, you know, what we're doing is it's all real time and it's recorded, and people ask open questions. Here's the other thing is during pretty much all of our events in real time, people can jump in and ask whatever questions they want. And so there was a hesitancy there of how do we mask who's asking the questions so that they can still. So one of those fears, if people know it's being recorded, going to be published,
are they going to ask the questions?
Are they going to ask the real
questions? The burning questions that they really need to ask. Yeah.
Right. And so we just had to get to the point where, you know, we can have them be completely anonymous. We were thrown into this, right? Like we're doing a lot just on conference calls, now let alone webinars.
Yeah.
Ramping up, and then, you know, what platform do we use? Is it Zoom? Is it GoTo? But yeah, that was the other side, is if we put this in place and they know it's being published, will people stop asking questions? Because that's
will they stop showing up, right? Will they stop showing up if they know they can just listen? Sometimes that can be a detriment. Yep. People are like, oh, I'll listen to the recording later, but they don't show up and they don't listen to the recording.
Yeah. And so that's, a lot of our conversations, you're like, hey, you should really, really, really do this. And so, we did, and it's been beneficial.
Great.
And actually, I think we're going to the point now where we just want to go back to the backlog and just slowly release it all and just post it on YouTube. Just create, the channel's there now, and just release it, because the reality is this stuff is changing so fast. And people are busier than they've ever been in the digital space, and they need to consume it on their own time, which is another thing with the podcast. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, just as a consumer of content, you know, I go back and I'll watch a video that's 6 years old, but I'll be thinking in the back of my head, okay, some of these things might have changed, but some part of it is still valuable, you know? So just because something was recorded 6-7 years ago doesn't mean that there aren't pieces of it that are still valuable.
Yeah, especially, some of the people, I'm blessed to be in this position that I get connected to are just the leaders in digital, you know, in digital thought leaders, I should say. They're out there. We've got like Tim Armstrong from Flow Code, who's jumped on, the founder of the Amazon Vendor Central Group, George Westcott, you know, some of the top agencies that have ended up getting acquired. It's the group of people, you know, Dries Patar, founder of Drupal, Acquia, you know, Kelly Getch, you know, basically founded the Mock Alliance, was part of Commerce Tools. Like, we get some really, really, really cool people, and you can learn from that. Like you're saying, you can go back a year and you're still picking up nuggets from people who are that smart and kind of how they're sharing their story on life. And
one other thing I want to ask you about is, you know, one of the things you and I connected over is we're both dads of 4 kids. And you built a business like I did for a while that was really heavily dependent on travel. And there's always that tension between, especially for a woo, I love going out and meeting people, but I also have this guilt that I feel about going out. How have you managed to balance that tension?
Early flights out, early flights home. Right.
That's so funny. I do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
You minimize the time away, and it's hard. That's the hardest thing is, you know, it's funny because people who don't travel a lot think travel's glamorous. I'm like, no, I'm in a hotel or I'm in an airport eating breakfast, lunch, dinner by myself.
Yeah.
It's just shortening all of those trips. So I'm on the 5 a.m. flight out and I'm on the 5 a.m. flight back the next day. And when you focus on that, you're tired, but you're gone one night a week. So you're missing that, 5 hours with the kids.
Yeah.
But
for you, it's beneficial that you're you're in Michigan, you're in the middle of the country. So that's helpful.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a little plane flight to Detroit, and then I connect anywhere. And then I just, bring on you have to get to the point, delegating and just trusting. And that's one of the hardest things, because getting that person that can do it, they're not going to do it as well as you. the first time, but they're going to get better. And so you have to be able to delegate and know the first time they're going to get a B minus.
Yeah.
But if you walk through with the partners what's going on and that they're going to be able to do more, because I can't do myself 100 dinners a year.
Yeah. Now you have 100 events a year. There's no way you could do that. Yeah.
No, there's no way. So like, hey, look, help us groom somebody new and get them in. And then, after 2 or 3, I mean, they're just crushing it. And so it's the same thing every founder, I think, boss deals with, which is, delegating that. And you just have to be the first few times, there's not going to be 100. They're not going to score an A+.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as they pass.
You have, there's so many other companies that I've talked to that ask me, because we've done a lot of events, nowhere near as many as you, but they'll ask me about organizing a dinner or cocktail hour, especially around a conference that they go to. And I'm such an advocate of it. When you do this and you go to a conference, it's a way to get a lot more mileage out of it. You have a very interesting format with a cocktail hour and then a guided conversation. Talk a little bit about the format of how you organize these. I'll start off with this preface it with we've done everything. We've done the sweets, we've done the cooking, we've done the wine tasting, we've done race car driving, and just for everybody's information, what everybody comes back to is the dinner. And that's because the format that we have an hour cocktail hour from 6 to 7, everybody's networking. And then at 7:00, we sit down and we, it's usually plated service almost every time. And I'd say 99% of the time there's plated service. You're putting in a quick order. There's 20, 30 people around the table. And then you have a guided conversation on the topic where the moderator is kicking in and saying, hey, everybody, thanks for joining. Let's buzz around the table, name, role, company, one thing you want to get out of the dinner. And then you're getting really topical around what a discussion is going to be. And then as the moderator, you're tackling all of those questions. And in this case, you've got a sponsor who's one of the top rated providers in the space. So you already know they know it. They're already recommended by 10 plus brands in the network that we really trust. So we know they're going to deliver on content, and you just have them answer questions. And once you've got that conversation flowing, I mean, it's an hour and a half of just peppering them with questions and people peppering each other with questions. I'd say the one thing that we always hone in on is an hour and a half is the time limit. 8:30, you shut down the conversation. I mean, you're not solving, Amazon paid media, strategy in an hour and a half. You're not solving it pretty much ever. But people make a time commitment. And when they've made that time commitment, adhere to that time commitment. We end the dinner right at 8:30, maybe 8:35. Yeah, an hour and a half in. And then if anybody wants to stay, stick around, have another cocktail. That's great. Network, knowledge share, but you give people that opportunity to leave if they have to. Because again, some people got to catch a red eye home. Some people got to get home to the family. Totally understand that. And so that format has just been a fantastic format. People love it. And do you always do it around another event, or you do them independently?
Both. Yeah. There's enough people in the network now that we do. I mean, we're at all the major shows. We're at the Shop Talks and the NRF and the E-Tails and, I guess it's RICE now. We're around all those doing multiple events, the Unboxed or whatever it might be. But then a lot of it's just bespoke. Hey, we've got a team in LA or Seattle or Chicago. And there's enough people in the network. We'll just, hey,
cool.
I'd say about 20% to 30% are have attended before, and the others have never attended before. So we're always growing the network with every event. So.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great format that anyone listening to this can replicate for their business as well. Not easy, but you put a bit of effort into it and it's such a great payoff. As you describe it, I'm kind of nostalgic for when we were doing more of those types of events. I miss it. I love doing them.
Yeah. I believe it. You're a woo, I'm a woo. Those are just, they're great. They're so much fun.
Yeah. I want to wrap with the last question I asked, which is my gratitude question. I'm a big fan of gratitude, especially expressing gratitude to those who helped you along the way, especially peers, contemporaries, mentors, business partners, investors. Who would you want to shout out and thank?
Yeah, I mean, you can always go with the standard, like the family and the close friends, but I'll kind of go to the business side, which is, when I was at Perrigo, there's a guy, Anthony Hogan, and I reported to him as I was in the last maybe year. And it was a conversation because it was always open and transparent. He's a fantastic leader, just a fantastic leader around, should I do this? Or do I have a career path within corporate America? And I love it when people are honest. And he said, your career path in big corporate America to the top is limited. And I was like, why? And he's like, because to get to that executive level, you have to be willing to step on some people on the way to the top. And you love people too much to ever do that. And
did that advice hurt when he gave it to you?
What's that?
Did that advice hurt when he gave it to you?
No, because he followed up with, you need to leave and you need to go chase it. Like, it's just open. Those aren't necessarily exact words, but that's just like, you need to go chase this or you'll forever regret it. And so, yeah, that's when you have people, it's great. I mean, we have family and friends, but it's also great to have other like mentors in the business setting that are just fully transparent and pour into you. And I mean, I took that as, on a personal level from the standpoint, like, I need to be this way with everybody who works with me, open, transparent, and encourage them to do what's best for them in any setting. And sometimes
that advice he gave you was like life-changing advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he could have we were outperforming and he could have said, hey, you need to stay here. It's going to be awesome. And he said, hey, this is actually how it's going to be. And so,
yeah.
And to turn that around and be able to do that with people on my team I think it's important. Sometimes it means you have to encourage people to leave, and it's not because they're bad or not performing, but you see so much potential. And if you don't have the opportunity, like, to give them to meet that potential, just the structure of your business, then you help them.
Yeah. That's great advice. Aaron, this has been such a pleasure talking to you. BWG Connect's the name of the business, the Digital Deep Dive podcast, which we've been privileged to help you with. Where else can people go to connect with you and learn more about you and attend one of your events?
LinkedIn. We post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn of upcoming events. Again, on the brand side, anybody can pretty much join. I love talking with people. Just ping me there. Aaron Conant, Aaron Conant on LinkedIn. That's primarily where we're at. And anybody ever wants to chat, I love people.
That's for sure. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.